Welcome everyone. Tonight we have special guests, 3 people who work at Block and Tackle, and they're going to tell us a little bit about what the client work that they do is, and take us through kind of like a behind the scenes of some of the projects they've worked on recently. And then they're going to talk about opportunities for people to work with them, and I'm sure a lot of you are here for that. So I will turn it over. I don't know if Megan, you want to start, and then
Tina. Yeah. Maybe we'll just do like really quick intros between the 3 of us. So I'm Megan. I'm a senior producer at Block and Tackle, and I am joined by Adam.
What's up? I'm Adam, a creative director and partner at Block and Tackle.
And Saurabh.
Hi, I'm Saurabh. I am an animator here at Block and Tackle, do 3D, 2D.
So we're excited to chat with you all tonight, and Adam's gonna share his screen for just a little eye candy.
There we go. Get rid of the gray box. All right.
Okay, so hello, we're Block and Tackle, a boutique creative studio focused on conceptual design and visual storytelling. We craft campaigns for on air, and so that's a lot of promo packages, show packages, network branding. We also do digital micro content, live events, and we dabble in key art. This is kind of all under the umbrella of entertainment marketing. Our campaigns are earnest, artful, and a little bit mischievous, which we'll get to that more later. When I think of our studio, 2 pillars stand out in how we approach the creative process: to create with intention and to be strong collaborators. And those 2 things together really drive fruitful partnerships, both internally among the staff and with our clients, and elevate the creative in unexpected ways. So here we have just kind of a sampling of our various work throughout the years. Thank you, Adam.
Okay. Thank you, Megan. I just wanted to sort of, I guess, like tell like a little bit about, well, I'm going to get into kind of a little bit about our process, but one thing I just want to sort of point out that's really exciting for me about, what we'll call motion graphics, which is sort of a debated term, I think, because it's like sort of a catch-all and kind of means a little bit of everything. And we sort of do a little bit of everything, but the thing that I think is really exciting is that it's a very immediate sort of industry to be in. Like we are, we're involved in a very creative way with these promo campaigns. We're working directly with the creatives at networks for the most part. Like we don't really do that much agency work, so there's not really a middleman between us and the client. And we have a great team, and I think we sort of thrive with a team, but you can literally kind of like close yourself into a bedroom or your living room or wherever you are and make something that's successful, right? Whereas, film is an amazing medium. We're just talking about, the Oscars, but it's like so big and collaborative that like, it's hard to sort of like get from the beginning to the end point. And there's some projects that we sort of do that are more complicated as well, but I think the exciting thing is that sort of immediacy of being able to kind of create more or less on your own, and then sort of get your teammates in there to help you just push things over the edge. Megan touched on this a little bit. I think, we pride ourselves on work that's conceptual and always built around a core concept. And I think it really helps if you're looking at a project and thinking about really like what's the best idea to communicate what the clients are trying to get across. And in our case, it can be a huge range of types of things that we're doing, right? So we've done we've done news graphics for NBC. We've done lots of promos for TV networks like FX, and we did some stuff for Google recently. So, you know, or I've been telling people, like last summer we were working on preschool kids content and also Chucky. So it's like bloody babies and, you know, cute bouncing babies at the same time. And so, you know, it's a little bit of research, a little bit of exploration, and just like intuition to get to kind of the place where you've got a strong concept. And then, you know, like anything, execution is really important. I think now more than ever, clients are expecting quality, and that's really just a given, right? Like you have to have all of your I's and dotted and your T's crossed, and the details are really as, you know, perfect as you can possibly make them. And then sort of push beyond that into sort of like with the really great creative, or something that's original, or, you know, mischievous, we like to say, in some way surprising. And then again, making sure that the design is really the design choices that you're making are backed up by the conceptual idea that you have. And so we always, you know, we say we have no stylistic agenda, and I think you can kind of see that from the variety of work we have in our portfolio, that we're not, you know, some like craftsmen might be looking to sort of like really hone in on the specific thing that they're good at, but us as a studio are thinking more from a conceptual standpoint. So that means that like the design execution is always different, and that makes it kind of hard sometimes, because we're always kind of doing something new and trying to figure out how to get that thing done. But also makes it really exciting. I mean, no day is ever the same, really. You're always trying to solve a new problem.
I think just to build off of that, like I think a good example is like I mentioned before, we dabble in key art. Like there's a lot of agencies that are dedicated to just key art, and their approach to key art is very specific. And when, go ahead.
I'm sorry, do you want to just, does everyone know what key art is, or you want to just quickly say what key art is? Yeah.
You can take a stab.
Oh yeah, no, essentially it's just like a key art is basically like a poster, right, for a campaign. And a lot of times it's the first piece of artwork that's made for a marketing campaign, and it's called the key art because it's basically like the key to the rest of the campaign. So you're setting the style and the attitude of the show in one single image. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
So yeah, you'll see that on subways, or a lot of places are using that for their digital thumbnail that's on Netflix or Hulu or what have you. You know, there's agencies that are dedicated to that, and they approach it in a certain way. So, but our approach is a little bit different because we have that. We're very like rooted in that design approach, and so we want to create things that are just a little bit unexpected and different in the key art space.
Does anybody have any questions about what motion graphic, about what we're doing? Any questions at all before we move on to a couple of project breakdowns?
Like Ryan has a question.
Yeah.
Hi. Oh Lord, is a bad habit. First of all, I just want to thank you each for coming to this meeting, because this is definitely something that I was very much looking for when I was looking around at Park Post. So one of my questions is, how would the occasional workflow look for your current projects? Because I do see that you use some 3D elements on top of 2D elements. You mess around with different assets and combine them with like different typographies with things. So how would it usually be? Do you guys jump from 3D into 2D? Is it just 2D, or do you guys go mainly into 3D? How does it usually work for you?
That's a great question, and maybe I'll quickly summarize, and then Saurabh can talk more specifically. But yeah, like I was saying, it's really the style of the project really depends on the concept, right? So sometimes it's 3D. I mean, we do a lot of 2D, right? But you can see on this page, we've got a little bit of a 3D logo going on there with the last OG. I'm just trying to see if there's other 3D examples here, but there's not really.
Mayans.
Yeah, Mayans a little bit with American Horror Story there. But I think it's two things, right? It's like, on the one hand, if the concept is really asking for it, then we'll design for it, right? We did this promo, or actually this FX movies thing. That's this, and the first one and the second line there. That whole project is 3D, and that was the the design choice that we made for that. So on the one hand, it depends on the project. On the other hand, as the team evolves and changes over time, different people coming in designing in the studio, they're designing to their strengths, right? And because we're not necessarily pushing our particular agenda, like myself or my partner Ted as the creative directors, we're like open to those ideas. I myself am not a 3D guy, so I don't design in 3D, but Saurabh, who does some 3D, might suggest something in 3D, or we have a perfect example now where we're working on a studio project where we were just going to do it in 2D, and one of the other guys, Dylan, was like, or actually, Saurabh, you can tell a story because it was your idea, right?
Yeah. No, we were going to do this whole thing, the studio project in 2D. We were about to do it like this whole vector Illustrator style, and then I think I mentioned to one of my coworkers, we were like, man, I wish I could see this in 3D. We can like maybe like do like some cool like clay stop motion-y style. And I wasn't on that during that time, but he mocked it up real quick and sent it out to the Slack channel, and everybody just loved it. And it just kind of went from there. So it's definitely just about trying different stuff and seeing how everybody reacts. I think 3D itself is also more of like a group feeling. Just putting it out there, seeing how people react and how we can like just improve it and like make it seamless with the 2D, if we're gonna like put on top of stuff.
Yeah, and so now that project is primarily 3D. But to answer your question, I guess more specifically, I think, maybe the majority of the time we're using 3D elements in 2D comps. Like I would say, everything we're finishing is in After Effects pretty much. And so, we'll take assets from 3D and work them into our designs in whatever way. We don't have like a big 3D pipeline necessarily. It's more of a tool that we're using, to make elements for the final comps. Does that answer your question, Ryan?
Yeah, I guess I'm just kind of, I'm gonna be completely honest, I'm very anxious on like what questions I want to ask, because this is so amazing.
All right, ask anything you want. That's what we're here for. Yeah.
Looks like
Another question. Oh,
yeah.
Well, you go first.
Hi. I've just had a question. I'm interested in motion graphics, but I have little to no traditional art skills like drawing or sketching, and it's something I definitely want to improve on. But I was just wondering how necessary those are within motion graphics.
I would say fundamentals are important no matter what, right? You're going to want to know, about color theory and composition and, ideas about motion and timing. I think all that stuff is important. The actual, skills that you have, hopefully you have some other skills that are not drawing that you could bring to the table. But I don't think you necessarily need to have formal training and draw. I don't feel like I'm a great drawer either. Like I can do it if I really think real hard about it, right? But and take a long time. But we've hired freelance animators. For example, on this cake project that we did, where the animators on that, Alex, the one guy that we have on staff here, but also Marika, who worked on it, she can draw perfect on model forms every time, just freehand, and like that's a real skill that you have to really hone. It's kind of what I was saying before, like some people focus really on a specific element of the craft and get really good at that, right? And other people, like in our case, we're more generalists, so we're not expecting everyone to be able to do everything exactly. Most things. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we'll take a moment, I guess, to kind of move forward in the deck, and then we can take more questions as they come up. Jump forward here. So when we were, oh, Megan, you want to start here, right?
Yeah, sure. I'll do just a really quick overview. So Sneaker Center is that was a recent project about a couple of years ago. We've worked with ESPN for many years, and they came to us along with a production partner for a new series for their platform ESPN Plus called Sneaker Center. And it's a 7-part mini-series that explores sneaker culture across sports and entertainment. And it's each episode is has a focus, but they're vignettes that go into interviews with athletes or cultural icons, and it's all through the love and a shared interest in sneaker culture. So this was really a fun idea when we heard it. We loved the premise of the show, and we were really excited that they reached out to help create the visual identity for the show. And part of that process was developing like what the in-show graphics would look like. So things like lower thirds and title cards and transitions. But on a bigger picture, it was also logo development, like a general style guide for kind of establishing the vibe and the tone of the show that they could, and color palette and font that they can carry out across different verticals that they are handling with various teams. So that would be across digital or social media. And then we also did the show open, which was a larger piece of the graphics package. And right here, that the slide that Adam has up is the in-platform key art. So this is like what you would see when you log into ESPN Plus, and you have the tiles of different shows. This is kind of what you would see. And this was really fun to create because we had all of these really amazing sneaker illustrations. And we thought it was really, because we had a collection of them, which was used for another piece in the show, which we can talk a little bit more about. It just was such a great opportunity to kind of use that and develop it into this series key art and come up with different compositions and highlight all the different artwork that was on the various sneakers that they wanted to highlight, because we learned through the process and working with the show's director, sneakerheads are a very niche group, and they just love the different types of sneakers and the characteristics and the different colorways. And there's some that are special drops that come out. There's some that are very rare and limited edition. And so being able to kind of take that spirit and highlight in different crops of them for the key art was really fun to do.
Yeah. So, but Bhavita, the director of the series, like I think Megan was talking about, was like the ultimate like OG's sneakerhead, and knew like every colorway, everything that had come out, and he was really wanted us to be able to kind of like tap into that culture and in as authentic of a way as possible, but also make it feel sort of fresh and exciting. And so the way that our process works is, after sort of meeting with Babito and getting his sort of like take on what sneaker culture means to him, we sort of like hunker down at our, and start pulling reference and then creating a presentation. And this is a selection of like the style frames that we presented in our first pitch, basically back to ESPN and the production company. So we have, we present 4 directions. We tend to present 3 to 5, let's say, directions to the client. Just very quickly, the first one, represent, was meant to be more of a photo-centric, where we'd be seeing, kind of like documentary style, feet on the street, like actual people's sneakers that are worn and like how they style them and how beat up they get. The second one, So Fresh, So Clean, was meant to be like a little bit more slick, kind of like almost like putting the, clean, pristine sneakers on a pedestal, like almost kind of gallery-esque. Laced Up has a little bit more of like a hip kind of modern vibe to it. Feels very kind of like loose and free and energetic. And then Invasion was kind of just like sneakers everywhere, multiplying tons, just like in your face, sneakers, like so many things about sneakers. And so the direction it went for was Laced Up. Part of our exploration was logo design. So, here you can see we're trying to tap into like a little bit of like, oh, here's the laces, and here this bottom left one has got a little bit of treads going on, or like there's the, cross of the laces down the tongue in the middle of this top right one. The one we settled on, or the client settled on, was this bottom right one, because they felt like it looked like maybe the label on a sneaker, on the tongue of a sneaker. And that we took and sort of created a bunch of logo designs, this literal sneaker center, and then we did this sort of abbreviated version that they could use in different iterations. And then for the open, Babito's idea actually was that we would take, the journey of the laces, kind of lacing up the tongue of the sneaker, and interweave inside of it like all aspects of the timeline of sneaker culture, from the bottom of the tongue all the way up to you get to the top, and then the logo is actually like on the top of the tongue. So I'm going to jump out and try to play this. Hopefully it plays cleanly, but we'll see. This is the open for the show. So this is a case where the whole thing's built in After Effects, and we're taking assets that we would get. Megan can probably speak about this, kind of, she was managing this, but we're taking assets that we're getting from Babito, from his archive, from different people at the production company, from Getty, from anywhere, right? And then like, you have to figure out what are you legally allowed to use, and like, what's covering the idea, the clients would come back and say, oh, well, we want a little video in there, right? Like, it's just sort of like a bit like, I feel like we got this thing down pretty quickly.
It was just
It was like lots of tweaking, right?
It was lots of tweaking, because obviously we made image selections, and but Babito and the client, they had their must-haves, like Fat Joe. We had to have him in. We could not choose, like he was a must-have. And that was, I think, it was a little bit of push and pull, because some of their requests, they wanted to drop into a certain mortise that we had there, and it just like that we had to kind of, for the most part, we were able to make it work, but there were some instances where we kind of had to push back and just say, actually that it doesn't make sense for this reason, because either like it kind of changes the composition of the whole piece, or like it's very distracting when you see everything else in motion. And so as a whole, the project was a really good example of it was a fulfilling collaborative experience, because Babito looked to us and trusted us to make everything come together and to really art direct how everything was going to look. But we also relied on him to tell us and direct us into what is going to be authentic and what's going to really register with that sneaker head culture. So it was, yeah, the assets got a little crazy. Like, he came for a working session once and he was just airdropping things to my computer. And so I was working with the producer on their end being like, do you know where this came from? Is it cleared? And so we had a lot of back and forth and a master Excel list of just making sure things were cleared and or finding alts when it was not clear, because we did run into some of those issues.
So one of the other aspects of this project, which is something that we do a lot for I mean, I'd say 90% of the projects that we make involve building toolkits. And so that's essentially taking your After Effects project and building it so that it can be customizable for the client. The easiest example is if you think of a lower third, let's say. Actually, I think I have lower thirds here. So, we would build a project where we give it to the editor or to the show's team, and they can type in any name that they want, any name title that they want. And it has to be, and Saurabh can sort of talk about this a little bit too, maybe, but you have to take what you've done, clean it up in a way that's very clear, but also dynamic. And a lot of times it's expressions. Saurabh, you want to mention briefly, like some of the things that we do to set that up?
Yeah. It's very expression based, like Adam said, just connecting layers to like an effect, like sliders or like checker boxes. So like you can turn on and off, like, oh, I don't want that sneaker, or I don't want this shape, or I want to be able to edit this text super easily. It's just on the top right there. Easy for them to see. Yeah.
Yeah, and just also in case anyone's not familiar with After Effects, like expressions are essentially coding that it's like, it's a scripting kind of coding language that you use to help make things more dynamic. And so we built essentially, like what you're seeing here is a bunch of end pages from little mini opens that are inside the show. So they could make segments for the show. In this case, one says the hotspot, but they could type something different in there if they wanted it to say like Saurabh sneaks or something, right? Or if it says slept on butters, but they wanted to change it to like, Megan's kids, whatever it wants, they could type that in there, change out the sneakers, change out the colors.
Are those MoGraph packages for Premiere, or do you for like other platforms as well?
No, we mostly deliver stuff in After Effects. Honestly, for the most part, when we're working with TV networks, they have their own internal teams who are very familiar with After Effects. They prefer to be able to like rip stuff apart and make new things if they want to. I don't think we've actually ever delivered anything with MoGraph, to be honest, but
yeah, I don't think it's definitely come up, and I think we've gotten MoGraph files, or we've had to I think we've definitely had to like structure our After Effects projects knowing that it is going to eventually, like, someone's going to need to do it in MoGraph. So those kinds of things, it is always helpful, like when we're onboarding a project, asking them what, like, getting all those specs down, because that really is important. Getting that information, the sooner the better. Like, what's your aspect ratio? What's the dimensions? Because do you need things in social sizes? Because if that comes up halfway through a project,
yeah, actually,
it creates some headaches.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about this. Sorry, go ahead, Brad.
No, I was just going to say that creative brief and the conversation with the client is extremely important.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, not being afraid of the clients, right? Like your job is to help them get what they need, right? So you have to be brave enough to just ask them anything.
Yeah.
Megan mentioned we did a bunch of sneaker illustrations. this is the case too, where like, even if you're not sneakerheads, you kind of got to get in that mindset, right? We made 100 different sneakers, 101 sneakers. That wasn't necessarily part of the original brief, but it was kind of worked with the design, and we all were kind of enjoying making them. So after we had the first initial few where we got the style down, the art direction style down, we basically just like distributed it out to everybody, and everyone was kind of like ripping on making sneakers. And then this is really exciting for me. We delivered, Megan mentioned at the very beginning, a style guide basically for the series. And then even though we didn't do their Instagram account or do their social media campaign, they were able to take what we delivered to them, the guidelines that we gave them, and kind of create a whole new world of things out of it. And so that was really exciting to see the Instagram start populating with all the stuff that kind of was like kind of in the realm of what we designed. Had the right mood and right attitude, but also had a new energy that we hadn't necessarily come up with on our own. So that was really fun to see. I think that's the last one. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about Sneaker Center or anything else? Oh, Christopher, I see your hand up.
Yeah, hi. So I have a question about the collaborative aspects during the show opening. So when I animate on a team, it's usually cut into segments, and it's like easy to divide by cuts and stuff. But something like that's so smooth. How does the animation workflow really work with a collaborative team? Does someone does keyframes, and someone does like tweeners and stuff like that, or borders, or everyone just gets their fingers in the pie?
That's a good question. It's a little bit of both. And actually the next project, Journey, maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the collaborative stuff there as well. In the case of Sneaker Center specifically, Ben Hill, who was helping us, he was sort of the architect of the places. So he did most of the animation. I mean, this is sort of a short piece, so he did, the majority of the animation, and then, pulling stuff in and out of it. He probably did the majority of it, but I think after his time was done, then swapping things out wasn't too hard. You mentioned, working in a specific place where there's a cut to another scene. And I think a lot of times it's that we're doing, except for maybe like slightly glorified, just more like a transition than a cut, right? So you're passing the scene, or you're passing your project or your scene to another person with like a transition, essentially. You're like, oh, the camera's going to pull back, and then we're going to switch to Saurabh's scene, right? Or there's going to be kind of like a wipe across, and that's a good place to kind of pick up a new comp. So it would really depend on the project, but a lot of times it's like that, where people are working at individual scenes. Sometimes, like if it's like we're talking about incorporating 3D, let's say, right? There might be a 3D guy or girl who's doing the 3D modeling, camera moves, rendering. They're giving it, those renders and the passes to the After Effects artist, who's then putting it together. And it's like, oh, hey, you got to speed this up or slow it down or change the camera, or, the camera comes out of 3D into After Effects, and I can kind of connect things that way. Yeah, there's a lot of back and forth. I mean, sometimes we'll do like, somebody does the color correction at the end, like sort of like I'm gonna close your eyes for a second. Okay. Actually, I don't have it in here, but we did this American Horror Story project where there was like a bunch of 2D animation, and then there was like a really heavy effects pass at the end that was like grain and particles spilling off, and like camera shake, and like all this other sort of like finishing stuff that happened. And that was a totally separate project that basically you would take the render or the comp from an artist and like drop it into this new project, and then someone else could do all the fiddling with like the final treatment, right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem.
I have a quick question about, well, actually first, what did you do the cake thing? Is that you guys? For
So,
FX?
Yeah, so cake for anyone that doesn't know, is basically like an anthology series. Anthology is not the right word. What's the word? Like a curated,
Yeah.
a curated series of shorts. Some of the stuff's produced for the show. Some of it was licensed for the show. So every episode's a little bit different, but there's some continuing like little short form things that play. And the way that campaign worked is they had a different open for every episode, and lots of companies pitched ideas. I think they did internally pitched ideas. And so I think we ended up making, what did we make, eight episodes opens?
Yes, or yes, I believe so.
Right. So
That's really cool.
oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a
Thank
fun project.
This was another case where, like, the one that's in this overview here, this was cell, and then the other package that we did was all 3D. So it was just like two completely different styles, and so that it was just a fun way to flex those different creative muscles.
Yeah, I love daytime noir. That's my favorite cake thing. That's how I found out about it.
Yeah, so we did the show open and some package elements. So like in this case, it's just meant to look like I'll just play that. That was one, and then the other one was all.
Now I want cake.
I think one client note one time was like, sprinkles wouldn't act like that, and we were like, this whole show is very like that's we're gonna push back on that because the whole concept is just not based in reality. So sprinkles can do whatever they want.
Oh, that was interesting too. Yeah, they were like, the first couple passes, they're like, doesn't look tasty.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, they had strong opinions on the flavors of cake.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not sure who was asking about cake, but was there a question too?
I don't even know. I saw the cake thing and I was like, oh, did you guys do that? That's pretty cool. So I guess that was kind of it. I am curious in that last one. Is that like, so how did you guys animate that that one? What are the methods you use? The one that's like the cake dripping and like making the new like that thing.
Yeah, it's all cell animated. So this is a case where, like I was saying, you know, it takes a special person to be able to understand how to do that. And we have some cell animators on staff, but this particular one was animated by a friend of ours, Marika. And I don't have it on hand, but essentially it's lots of passes. So you do like, somebody was talking about tweening, right? So you do like really kind of loose, you know, every 20 frame or 24 frames, let's say, like key moments of the animation. And then you kind of go in and you do the 12s, and then you do the 6s, and then you kind of get in there and start doing the 1, 2, 3s, right? So it's just, you know, it's like old school Disney, right? Just cell animated.
Yeah, that's it. I almost thought maybe it was like some kind of like 2D shaded like 3D thing because it looks very photoreal. Well, not but like it looks like
physically believable.
You know,
yeah.
Yeah, actually, on this one, this explosion one, I believe there was a 3D reference for some of those tumbling shapes that was rendered and then essentially like rotoed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Britt,
Yeah.
Britt? Can't hear you, muted, I think. Maybe mic muted.
Ryan's back.
Hey.
Ryan?
Are you with us? It's like the seance, right?
Ryan, do you want to go while?
Hello?
Sure.
Hey,
Oh.
Britt. Okay.
Can you
now
hear
we're-
me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you now.
I have no idea why that was like that. Yeah, so I was looking at your website.
You're muted again, Britt. Now on Zoom. There you go.
Okay. Ugh, it's been a day. Okay. Yeah, so I was looking at your website too. And I was just curious about the work you did for Always Sunny. So yeah, so that's like my favorite show ever, and I always wanted to know who made those, like that content for it, and it was really cool that I saw it on your website. I was just like kind of wondering like what it was like working with them, and if like what programs you used to make the content you made for them, and like usually how many people on a team made those.
All great questions.
Thank you.
I wish could say it was glamorous. Unfortunately, despite the fact that we've been working on Sunny now for I think 9 years, we've never met anybody that any of the cast, nor the producers or directors. We work directly. We work with the network, so we're working with FX now. It's FXX.
Yeah, that's still super cool though.
Oh yeah, no, it's been awesome. I mean, this is a really amazing project because, you know, after the first year that we worked on it, season 7, they were like, it's a weird show. Believe it or not, they were like, they have all the viewers they're ever going to have. There's never going to be any more viewers, so it doesn't matter. We're just doing fan service at this point. Do whatever you want, make it weird. And then it was like, I remember we sent boards and they were like, it's not weird enough, make it weirder. And then every year since, I mean, essentially they're just like, make it weirder, make it weirder. What can you do that's weirder than last year? And occasionally, like with certain seasons, like in the last season, they were going to Ireland, so they wanted to incorporate Irish stuff into the campaign,
which was amazing because I think we've tried to do that in the past, and they always want to stay a little bit far. Like they don't really want to go down that route because it just wasn't. They just kind of wanted to break out into other areas. And so now with this season, it was like we can go the Irish route. That's great.
Yeah. And Megan, you worked on a bunch of projects, Sunny projects, so maybe you could talk about the team and how.
Yeah, I'd say, you know, it varies from year to year because each package is so different. I think there was one, I think the first one that I worked on, it was 3D heavy. So we had a team of about 3 to 4 people working on it. I think it was
the box one, is that this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that my first one? I don't know. I don't even
Which
remember.
which programs were you using for these?
This I was probably C4D and then After Effects, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, but here's the case where, you know, the core team was, I'd say 3 people, but we had a few others in the studio help make certain elements. So like the beer bottles, we had someone work on, or we had someone help out with just like a bunch of the other, like the Mylar balloon, the FXX, and then they would hand that over to like the lead on the project, who would put it all in the conform. But then, you know, as if the creative changes, like for I think in 13 it was more cell based. So that that project had oh no 13, that's right, it was our grunge rock series. This was the cell one. So this one, it originated at, they needed a teaser for Comic-Con, and we pitched an idea this is how much trust FX has in us. We just pitched a loose idea of based on like a bad rendition of the theme song, and we're like, and it's just bad illustrations of the gang, and it's going to be great. And we don't really know how we're going to make it, but it's going to look awesome. And they trusted us, and this was it was really fun to dive into it.
I'm gonna play this quick. I think it's this one. Hold on. Oh wait, there's no. Okay, so our producer Dorian played the theme song on a broken flute, and that was the sound. That was the sound that we ended up using as well. So I'll play it. Anyway.
That was my favorite thing I've ever seen. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
That one was really fun too, because we had an original idea where it was just like a slow pan across the screen, and we just liked how that was very awkward to watch while also listening to this very awkward rendition. But here's where it was the client who we've worked with for so long. It's like a very good collaborative back and forth, and they really pushed us to make it a little bit more integrated and like just get more scribbles in there and make it weirder. So it worked out.
Yeah. Hey, Saurabh, you worked on this package for Sunny, right? Did you have any insight on that process?
I mean, I thought it was just great, just working on Sunny. I mean, I think this was one of the bigger projects that I worked on when I first started. And there were like some 3D scenes in there that I was handling with like the knot and getting that in there. I think
the knot here, right? That gets untied at some point.
Yeah. The knot gets untied basically, and there's like these two monkey hands that just come out and like grab it. We tried doing it in like real life, so like buy some monkey hands and try to figure it out. Didn't work out, but the whole like unwrapping a knot scene was just fun. Yep, that's right there. And that's all 3D. So it's Toon Shader. It's just normal C4D render, nothing too crazy.
There's so much work and it goes by so fast.
Yeah.
I'm gonna I know there's a couple of questions still, and definitely want to have time for questions, but I also want to have time for Saurabh to talk through Journey. Is it okay if we just go through this next part of the deck? It shouldn't take too long, and we'll have time for questions. Is that all right? Shana?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we try to end around 9, so it's all about your time. So if you're able to stay a little longer, I'm sure some people will stay a little longer too.
Okay, thank you guys. Let's do this.
Cool.
Yeah, I can give just a really quick overview of Google CES. So for those of you who don't know, CES is the Consumer Electronics Show, and they have it every year, and it's just a bunch of companies that come together, and they're showing all their really cool gadgets that they've got planned to drop in the coming year or years. And Google reached out to us to partner for their LED screen that was to be displayed above their pavilion. They're such a big part of the show that they have their own pavilion. So they partnered, or they asked us to partner with them to create the content that would air throughout I think it's a 3-day conference. And the content ranged from branded pieces. There were a couple of pieces that were interactive. So they had like the weather or flights, or they had these different states that they would put up if there were wind advisories or extreme heat advisories because climate change is real and it often throws a wrench in things. In this particular case, Omicron threw a wrench in CES, and so they ultimately had to pull out of the live show for health and safety concerns. But we also created, we were really proud of the work that we developed for the LED screen. And among those pieces that we were most proud of are these art breaks that Saurabh can go a little bit more in depth on. It was 6 art breaks, and here we just got to be kind of, we took like their branding message of the campaign, Better Together, and use that as like the influence for each of the pieces. But Journey, which Saurabh is going to talk about, it was a special, unexpected one.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. So I'm going to talk about our Journey art break, which is heavy in 3D and how we went about doing it. As you know, like if you mess with 3D is like a whole different pipeline. And I'm going to talk you through how we kind of like got our headspace and how we did it. So first of all, what we had to do was just really dial down the idea of what we wanted to do. And in this case, we made just boards of kind of each scene and the journey the hero ball takes throughout the whole piece. And this was done much earlier than some of the other pieces, just because getting each scene thought out, each scene really correctly dialed in, so you don't have to kind of mess around with it later on in the process. That was very crucial for us. And these boards, they're just like super 2D, super vector, just gets the idea across. And you can just see where the ball goes. And moving on from those boards, then we get to the boardomatic / animatic. What we have here is just kind of like a moving piece. So you can see some of the stills from like the boards. We're just kind of using them to time out how long each scene takes. So knowing that timing is another crucial part, which is something you don't want to kind of really mess with in the later stages again, you know. So we have like some content, we're slowing down parts or speeding it up. We have still images just to get the idea across about how long each scene takes within the whole piece. And moving on, now you get into nitty gritty, you know. So what we use for this project, it was all just C40 redshift, you know, just to get that clean look. You can see here, if you're familiar with C40, we have some ramp nodes, lighting, just to get like that whole basic 3D, 2D style in place. Using these kind of methods was crucial and really, really fundamental. You can see the lighting scene here. You would think that it would be straightforward, like, oh, it's just a dome light or whatever, but it's not, you know. There's like multiple lights, one like really like overhanging light, one for just the ball, one side light just for the pedestal, and then like another frontal light. And just combining all these subtleties together, you can like art direct it into like this kind of end result. So you have your flat, starting from the top left, you have your flat diffuse colors, and then to the right of that, you have where the lighting falls, you know, mostly on the ball, and then it's flat on the pedestals. And then you go into your shadow maps, and then you go into your overall diffuse. And then that middle one, that one's basically what it would look like, just straight out redshift. It has a bit of specular, but we just kind of outfit out the background, and you add the background back in post. But
Sorry to interrupt, Saurabh. I just wanted
Yeah.
to point out that like one of the things about this project was that the color palette was dictated by Google because it was part of a bigger campaign. It was kind of in partnership with Android, and so there needed to be the Android green and then also some tweaked Google material colors. And so in order to sort of make sure that whatever we were creating here for Journey fit it in with the rest of the campaign that was all 2D, it was really important that we got the lighting just right so that it felt like like tints and shading of the actual pure color and not like my new color, right?
Yeah, exactly. That last, frame we have there, that's all, color treated, color corrected, just to get those green rights and just dialing those Google colors in there. That's all done in After Effects, and it's not done natively in Redshift, it's all post work.
Yeah. I'll just jump out real quick and play this one, and then we'll take questions. All right. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for now. Oh, there's everybody. Does anybody have any questions about that Google journey?
Would you call that a like, is it a logo, a promo, a bumper? Like, what is the proper word for like what something like that is?
Content. Yeah, I mean, like, we were creating content for that big screen in the pavilion, right? And a good amount of the stuff that we created was more sort of like straightforward branding, like show the two products coming together, put the type up, that kind of thing. And they were making other stuff that we weren't involved in as well. But part of the goal is like to keep that screen activated and interesting over 3 days. And it was basically it's going to be on like, 12 hours a day or 18 hours a day for 3 days. And so part of the thing that we were tasked with is just interpreting the idea of better together in, these art breaks that were kind of, artistic interpretations of the theme of the show. So we came up with we basically made 6 of them. They're all kind of different iterations of that. Sometimes there was one that's called Machine, where it's like all the pieces like interact in like a kind of more mechanical way. So yeah, content.
Cool.
Just real quick on that one, as you said, art breaks. Was there other content interspersed between what you delivered or intended?
Yeah. So there would have been little promos. I think, Megan, right? They were going to have other stuff that we didn't make, or was it all stuff that we made? I don't even know.
I think it was primarily going to be a lot of stuff that we made, like the interactive, those interactive pieces that say like the Google flights and the weather and then they had like the different states, and I think there were some announcements that they were gonna suggest for like schedule, like there's free coffee on the rooftop or something like that. Or we were saying free Teslas on the rooftop. Yeah.
Oh, there was like an interactive company called Red Paper Heart that was going to take the sort of mock-ups that we did and figure out how to basically create new things. Right? An example might be like, oh, it's a phone plus a computer better together, and then they could just like populate it with all sorts of different ones, right?
Cool.
Yeah, they were like, our stuff was handed off to them and they were charged with the run of show, which they were going to be there during those 4 days and just like populating the various content throughout the 4 days.
Nice. Thanks.
I have a
Do
quick
you think the
question.
writing
Oh,
process? Oh, sorry. You can go.
yeah, just a quick question. Do you guys do all that sound stuff in-house? Like, because everything seems very like specified to what you need to make.
I can answer that, sure. No, in the case of the Google one, we worked with a guy who calls himself the Chicken, and he post-scored them. So we gave him some notes about what we were hoping it would sound like, and then he did the sound. Actually, there was going to be no sound on them because they were going to just be in this exterior pavilion, but the show was canceled and we didn't get any really great video of people watching it. So we thought it would be more effective to have them with sound. And then a lot of the network stuff is post-scored also by their in-house team. Some projects that we know, when we'll have control, we'll work with an outside vendor. I think it's better to have music beforehand if you can, or some kind of track beforehand. It gives you some rhythm to work with.
Yeah, for sure.
When you were doing something like that, would you say the writing process is different than, let's say, you're doing something that was like a more traditional like narrative story? I mean, that's a story, obviously. It's just like when you're doing things that are abstract like that, how do you approach them? Because it feels like if I were to pitch something like that, it might be hard. So it might be like, oh, what is that? Or it might be like, oh, that sounds really cool. I can visualize that. Like, how do you make it so you can kind of like communicate something very abstract and kind of run with it, when to somebody you're pitching it to, maybe it just sounds like just some random crap or something?
What you don't want to do. It's not easy, but I mean, I wouldn't say that we did it, that we had a hard job in this case, because I think what we did was sort of what Google was asking us to do. They were calling them art breaks. They wanted it to sort of be abstract. We asked them if, is this a character-based thing? Because they had done character stuff in the past, and they were like, no, it's not a character thing. So in this case, it wasn't a hard thing to convince them of. But I understand what you're getting at. I think it is difficult. I think when we're pitching ideas, you just have to try to do your best to articulate your vision in as clear as a way as possible without actually making the thing, right? Sometimes you're gonna have to make the thing to do it. But as much reference or clear writing, clear thumbnail sketches as possible, to help get the client excited. There was one season of Sunny that we made. I could share it really quickly. It's very short. Hold on one sec. It's season 9. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with FXX, but Sunny was on FX, and FXX was a new network. It's essentially like a sister network, but like a bad sister network, where it was like all the comedy and like the sort of like lowbrow stuff was going to go on there. And this season of Sunny was the first time they were really promoting it. So they were like, it's a new network, and it's going to be, they had this idea originally that like all the content would be different lengths and the commercial breaks would be different, and it didn't really work out that way. But in order to sell this idea, we basically made what we call a Ripple-matic, and we took a bunch of references that sort of felt in the style. We treated them all with Sunny colors, so like just using gradient maps and tinting and After Effects, made everything black and white and yellow, and then cut the whole thing together to sort of feel like channel surfing, so that they could, without actually making the stuff, they could sort of feel what it would be like. And then, what we ended up making is very similar. So I'll play it really quick. So you can see like that would be an idea that would be hard to sell because you'd be showing them style frames that all look totally different. You're like, it's going to be all different, but when you see it all edited together, I think it makes more sense, right? Like I said, in that case, we basically made an example to.
Yeah, that's very cool. It's definitely, it sounds like that's a big part of the challenge probably is trying to communicate these kind of things to networks and stuff. So you guys are obviously doing a good job. So cool.
I mean, to be honest, we have a hard time with that even internally, right? So Rob, Megan, it's like, we're trying to share, right? We it's very collaborative. So like when a new job comes in, everyone's sharing ideas and putting stuff into a deck to try to talk about what they think could be. And you can feel that a lot of times, like you have a great idea, in your mind, it feels amazing, but you're explaining it and everyone's just like stone faced and you're like,
yeah,
go back.
Like,
go
how do you,
back and do it
how do you say like, oh, I'm going to have like a bunch of little lines? Like, how does an idea like, okay, here's a comp we're doing now, let's add a bunch of like lines that are like this and that and this and that. Like, how do you, like, does someone just like take the comp and then they're like, they kind of like stylize it and then they come back with that and you're like, oh, that's cool? Or is it like, hey, I want to take this and I want to do like these like squares and lines and like how does that usually work?
What do you think, Saurabh?
I mean, I would always go with an example. I think
Reference.
yeah, because that's just me. I like it visually as well. Being able to see like, oh, like it could look like this and we can like tweak it further instead of having it just in your mind. It would just be there and you can't share it with anybody, but having it out, sharing it. Yeah.
We were just looking at something internally today and it's a character doing a little something. And I was like, oh, like, that scene in Encanto when like Bruno like knocks on the wall and then like knocks on his head and then falls in the window. Like it should feel like that, like that kind of thing. Like, so just like pulling reference and trying to, get your ideas out with examples.
And you call that you call that a rip-o-matic is what you called that?
A rip-o-matic.
Yeah, nice. Awesome.
Yeah, ripping stuff.
I think the throughout all of that, it goes back to like we are creating stuff and we want to create stuff with intention. So it's like, even if it's a great idea, ultimately we're always asking like, does this answer the, can we tie it back to the campaign? Why are we making this decision? It doesn't have, like, is it rooted in something that is intentional and is important? Because ultimately that's only going to make the concept better. That's going to make the creative stronger. So it's a lot of we can do stuff because we think it just looks nice or cool, but a big part of selling it is especially to clients, is you need to tie it back to their brand, or you need to tie it back to whatever they're trying to market, because it's marketing, and that's a really important component to a lot of the work that we do.
Yeah.
I know Melise has a question, and then maybe we can kind of start wrapping up with job opportunities, and then whoever wants to stay after that to talk about jobs, then we can get to that part and let everyone else go since presentation's done.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. So since you guys mentioned a lot, like some clients wouldn't like the options or the work that you've done. So what was the communication like? If they don't like the artwork, would you keep revising it, or would you keep following their guidance, or what? Like keep revising it until they like it? Like how you handle that?
Well, I'll answer creatively, and then Megan can answer from a production standpoint.
Yeah.
I feel like, creatively, obviously we think our ideas are the best, right? But so I think, a general guideline is like, we try to push back once, like they're like, make it green. And we're like, we like it yellow. And they're like, make it green. And then we just make it green, right? And then you just try to like do your best to sort of like make it green and then make everything else work with it. Because ultimately they're the clients, it's their work. We're not fine artists, we're commercial artists. So our job is to help them make the best thing that they can possibly make. And a lot of times there's forces, that you're not aware of, right? They might want it green because everything else in their network is yellow right now. Who knows, right? So hopefully they give you a good reason for why they want it to be that way. Yeah, that's that. And I think just going back to examples, sometimes, the client needs to see something to really understand what you have in mind. So you might be like, oh, let us try it. Let us like just, go one more step and like see it, let us show you what we're thinking first. And then if you still don't like it, then we'll rework it. But I actually find that, we're really lucky. We work directly with creatives at networks, and their feedback tends to be like kind of smart, right? You're always like a little bit defensive at first, but if nothing else, like it forces you to go back and rethink what you're doing and rework stuff. And a lot of times the end product is better because of it. I don't think there's that many instances I can think of when you're like, oh, they ruined it at the last minute. From a production standpoint, it's a little different. Maybe Megan, you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, producers are kind of in the middle where we are very much working with our internal creatives, but then we need to advocate for the client when they're not on a call with us. So producers need to have a good handle on like some messaging or like just like really key marketing points that that definitely need to be integrated. So we kind of need to have like be looking at things with our client glasses on. And I think, when there is that there's feedback that's maybe not aligned with our creative vision, it's we regroup internally, we kind of parse through it and get a better understanding of like where they're coming from, how we could address it. And for feedback where it's like it's going to be like a creative redirect, it's just kind of, we all regroup as a team, and then it's about communication, right? So it's just like, yes, we can absolutely do this, but here are the effects. It's going to potentially change the schedule. It's really going to change like the whole identity of what we've already started, or it's just going to create a lot of problems down the road from a technical aspect. And then we also we feel it's really important to offer a creative solution that's kind of like the best of both worlds, or something that we think that like our future selves and for them, when they either get the toolkit or they get the final renders, it just like, it makes their workflow and their lives easier. So we're really big on offering those creative solutions that just make sense and kind of help keep everyone happy.
So like the logistics are important, right? Like the production team puts together a very clear calendar. There's clear deliverables, everything's spelled out, so that, we're flexible and we work with the clients to give them what they want. But like, you have this sort of like to fall back on and be like, well, we agreed to do X, Y, Z in this amount of time for this amount of money. And so if it really comes down to it, like you can push back that way because you've been clear at the beginning. There's no ambiguity when they're asking for something that's out of scope. You can be like, hey, we'll do you this favor, and then they feel great, right? But like, and you don't have to, like you've made it clear from the start. I think that's really important. Any other questions?
I have another question.
Sure.
Sorry, I got like logged out, so I don't know if this was said like in the past 30 seconds, but I'm just curious, like as someone who's doing I do like freelance stuff that is basically like kind of, I like to make little ditties and stuff for people like that, and I'm wondering like, do you have advice for somebody who's kind of currently a much smaller kind of independent contractor person doing stuff like this for people that aren't corporations and are very difficult and all that kind of jazz?
Your clients are difficult, you mean?
Well, my current one is, but yeah, I mean, just like, like it can be like contracts are less of a thing, and it's like it's harder to like hold someone to something maybe because like I'm not gonna like go to court with someone over $1,000 or something,
Yeah.
So like yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're also not going to pay a lawyer to make a contract, right? But I think you could, I think you could still write down exactly what you're going to make and how much you're going to get paid for it and make them sign it, right? Just in writing, so that like it's clear in the beginning how much time you're going to take to do it, how many times they're going to be able to ask for changes, right? Like one of the important things is to say, any changes to things you've approved already are going to cost you more. That's easy, right? They said they liked it green, now they want it yellow. Okay, you got to pay for that, right? No matter how easy it is, everything seems easy to everybody, right? So I worked on a job once where we designed a logo for a company. We designed the logo, made all this, we did collateral, business cards, stationery, whatever. And then they got a cease and desist because someone already had their name and they wanted to change the name. And he's like, well, all you gotta do is type out the new name. It's fine. We'll just do that quick. And it's like, no, we have to change everything, right? We probably weren't clear enough with him that wasn't a big deal, right? So he thought it was going to be easy, but it was really like we were done. So you just have to make sure you spell it out, and then hopefully that helps.
Yeah, but also, it's also like you know your craft, what it takes to make those changes, and so it goes back to that communication. Like sometimes you have to talk your client through the whole process and explain to them and teach them this is why it's going to take a lot more effort and time to make these changes. It's not just as simple as like switching a font in a Word document, because you're going to have all of these different, like it's a ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
So it is, first you kind of want to just talk them through all of that and make sure that they're like understanding the full scope of what they are asking, and then you can kind of go to your next level or next line of defense.
I think one thing that's kind of difficult too is like, we're in a creative business, so it's subjective, right?
Right.
And it's hard you want to do the absolute best you can, and sometimes it's not necessarily financially effective because you're like, we do this all the time. It's like we're like, we got to keep it simple, and it's just really hard to do, right? Before you know it, we've got 10 people working on it, and we're like, can't really afford this, but it looks so cool, and so it's, you need to try to make sure that you're setting the expectations both for yourself and for the client, like, so that when you're delivering stuff, you feel really great that you're giving them what you promised them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, the $1,000 is going to go really quickly, right? It's just.
Mm-hmm.
And the other problem is like,
sure.
when you agree to the budget, a fixed budget, the more you work, the less you make, right? It's sort of like it screws with your brain a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I
yeah.
definitely had that thought.
Right. So when you're estimating something like that, you have to really make sure like you can do it in the amount of time that you're getting paid.
So thanks, Jacob. So why don't we talk about job opportunities summer internships, fall internships. And if you have any other opportunities for people who are already out there working and want to kind of join as more like other than an intern type position, if you have any.
Yeah, sure. So we were, we just hired 2 new animators. So we filled 2 positions that we had open, but we do have interns. We've traditionally had summer interns, but there's no reason why we couldn't have interns at any time, except that, and Saurabh was our intern last summer, so he can talk about what the internship's like. But, we're looking for someone to be part of the team, and it's easier to be part of the team if you're here every day. So I think that's traditionally in the summer, people have more free time, right? If you're in school or during the year, it's harder to kind of commit, because for our internship, the intern's part of the team. So Rob, do you want to talk about what intern was like?
Yeah, I'll just quickly go over it. I mean, like it was all remote, first of all. It was, I'm in San Francisco as well, and, Block and Tackle's in New York. So I did have to, conform to the New York time, but again, I get off a bit earlier. And just meeting the team, it was just great. I mean, I just dipped my toes and got into the studio projects first, and then from there, I kind of went to the other client projects. And just as I went on, I just got to talk to everybody, what they're doing, how they do stuff, and being able to respond to just all the changes and any design needs and stuff like that. It was definitely a learning experience, of course, and I still am learning, but it was definitely helping. Really.
Do you want to talk about what skills you had before you came in, and then what you learned on the internship?
Yeah. I used to do 2D, 3D, mostly 3D. C4U Redshift. I did a little bit of Houdini, but it was mainly After Effects first. Animating is key to everything, and that's what it was in the beginning. And then designing as well. And from time to time there would be 3D. I think 3D is always a plus. So yeah, I think that's how it is.
I think one of the things that, Saurabh, he was great to talk to when we interviewed him. It was easy to talk to. He seemed eager and interested. And I think in previous summers also, I think the interns that we ended up hiring were, it's the portfolio is important, obviously, but being part of the team is important too. So someone that's easy to talk to, easy to communicate with, seems interested and eager, understands what you're making, wants to learn more. And we've hired other interns as well as Saurabh full time after their end of their internship time. And a big reason that we wanted to have Saurabh on the team was because he was so good at asking questions, wanting to learn more. I don't understand this. How do you do this better? What can I do? And never, I mean, we put him through the ringer making one After Effects animation of plastic bags going around the earth. And it was he never wavered or was this is super annoying. I'm tired of this, whatever. He just was really dedicated. So
it's definitely persistence.
Yeah. And I remember, I think Alex, who we also ended up hiring, when he was looking for an internship, I mean, don't drive us crazy, but he was really persistent. He was like, hey, I got other opportunities, what, can you guys make a decision about this? He's a very gregarious guy. And he just seemed like this is a great person to have on the team. His work showed potential, but it wasn't it was the most amazing portfolio you've ever seen. But you can kind of see that we're generalists. He was a generalist. He's dabbling a little things here and there. And that's, that's the kind of person that we need. Actually, one other thing, just in terms of our team, we really can't hire full-time for sure specialists. Like we can't really afford to have like a full-time cell animator because we're not always doing cell animation. Like Saurabh is into 3D. He's not going to be able to do 3D every single day. So we've also got to be able to do 2D. Even, we've had stretches of time where we've had like dedicated designer, someone who's only designing, and we can support that, but probably not more than one person, right? It's like we need people who can design and also want to animate, or can animate and also can design. That makes it really hard. It makes it hard to find people that are interested in doing all those things, and it makes it a little bit harder, I think, for the staff as well, because everything, there's a lot of challenges, but it also makes it for really satisfying. And then one other thing is, I think freelancing is great if you're specializing, but if you're interested in learning, I really think full-time job is the way to go. And that's slightly selfish, because I think having people full-time is easier on us from a production standpoint, but you're really going to be given opportunities that you won't be given as a freelancer. I think, as a freelancer, you're coming in, we're like, we need you to do this cell animation, but as a full-time person, you might be like, hey, can you do this cell animation? Like, give it a try. And like, if it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll see if we can get someone else in. Like, there's more of a chance to try and fail. If a freelancer fails, you're like, you're supposed to be a professional. I'm paying you for this, right? Like, I'm not paying you to like learn on the job. It's like that you came in here to do this specific thing. So that was a ramble.
I put the internship link in the chat for people.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about the internship? Like, when are applications, deadlines, who would they be interviewing with? Is it only for artist positions? Is it paid? You said it's every day that you'd like someone, so that kind of
sure.
stuff.
Great, all great questions. It would be a creative position for sure. Like I said, After Effects for sure, design, Illustrator, Photoshop, Creative Suite, let's say. It is paid. It is every day. Our hours are 10 to 6. We currently don't have anyone lined up for the summer, so it is open. Probably this summer, we've had 2 interns in the past in the summer, but probably this summer it would just be 1. And there's no deadline until it's just be like once we find somebody. And then once we do find somebody, we'll take that link off the thing. But if we're late on that, we'll let you know that it's already filled. There's a nice form there to fill out. Going to ask you a little bit about your own work and ask you to talk about our work a little bit. Am I forgetting anything, Megan?
No, I think that covers it. I mean, the applicant would, if they're selected, they would meet with Adam and Ted, go through a rigorous interviewing process. No, it's as someone who has interviewed with Adam and Ted, it's a very pleasant conversation, and they're both great to chat with, and they're really just, they've got a good eye, and it really is just about like finding that person who's eager to collaborate and eager to learn, because we're learning too. Like, every day is something different, and production comes in with a plan, and it changes, and like, that's okay. We're going to figure it out, and we're going to make it great. And so just anyone who kind of likes that environment and can thrive in that environment.
And it is fully remote, correct?
Correct. We are fully remote officially as of, well, now, but Thursday is our last day that we have our studio space.
Yeah.
Cool.
New era, fully remote.
Claudia?
So I saw like the application form and what positions like you're interested in, you can submit it. But if you like dabbled in everything a little bit, how would you exactly show your interest in producer, like as a portfolio? Because I know like for animating, like you can show your After Effects like reels or like for Photoshop, like what you've done in Photoshop. I don't know how you would show with the producing position.
That's a good question. So, I mean, I've seen some producers do put together reels that they've of projects that they've worked on, or they just have a site set up and it showcases the final product, and it either tells like the role that they did, if it requires anything more specific than producing, or just a little bit about like their responsibilities on the project. Other times it's just a resume, but you can also complement the resume with projects that you're particularly proud of, and use that as like an example of to support whatever is in your resume. So I'd say like whatever is going to showcase your talent the best, and however you can communicate that in the best way, that's how you should do it. So if you feel like you want to put together a site and that tells your story and your accomplishments and your how amazing you are, and why you love production and why you love producing, go make a website. If you can do that in a deck, make a deck. If it never hurts to have a traditional resume on hand, because sometimes that's just like a really quick reference point for whoever's interviewing, just to kind of get a snapshot of different roles, different responsibilities that you've had. So that's always handy. And LinkedIn is also good, because you can add you can add media links to different roles that you've had. I've seen a few colleagues of mine do that, and that's super helpful too.
Megan, I won't remember exactly how it went down, but Megan changed careers to get into motion graphics, and I just remember like you're saying that like you love television, right? You're just like into TV, and like kind of wanted to be more into entertainment. So I mean that's important too, right? Just to somebody that's wants to be part of this, this kind of environment.
Yeah, that was one thing. Like, this is for really anyone, but like, just keep talking to people, because you will, even if that first contact it doesn't result in an immediate opportunity, like your name can get passed along, or they can say, let me connect you with someone else, or just it's exhausting and it's very taxing for sure, but it is really important just to talk to people. And that's how I found myself at Block and Tackle. I talked to one person, then another person, and then eventually it was a timing thing, like a position was open. I came from grant administration, so I had to really sell my transferable skills. That's another thing. And also that I really love TV. And fortunately, Block and Tackle is willing to take a chance. So.
Thank you.
Of course.
Connor?
Sorry, I know it's staying later, so I didn't want to take up much of your time. But I was curious as to something that Adam said earlier. So I'm working at an agency right now, but it's more of an in-house team. So I'm curious, when you said that you didn't have like a graphic design team or a graphic designer on full time, when you intake the client's needs and you get the key art from them, how are you? Is it just like the creative directors are getting together to kind of piece out what you think the animation should look like, or is the whole team kind of involved?
I don't know if I said that we don't have a graphic designer, but we do. I mean, everything that you see on our site, everything that we do, we design and animate. Sometimes we're getting assets from the client, or there might be some established design elements for it, like Google, for example. There was like, a color palette and fonts that were already kind of established. But we did design all those things. I got sidetracked because I was like, oh, did I say it in designer? So then when we get a brief, let's say from the client, I think usually in the initial sort of intake, Megan or Dorian will just find out the details about the project, and then we'll decide if we can take on the project from a production standpoint, if the budget and the timeline makes sense, if we can handle it. And then we'll meet with a client. A lot of times that initial meeting with the client where they're briefing us on a call, let's say, it'll be a producer and the creative director. Sometimes we'll have a project lead come in as well if they have time. So we'll sort of hear them out. But then we usually brief, if not everybody in the studio, then like depending on the scale of the project, then like a couple people that are going to be working on it. And then, the designers or the creatives on the team are all kind of bringing ideas to the table. So we're working on a key art project now where I think we had like 2 or 3 people coming up with concepts, and they're just like, reading the brief, watching the episode of the series, and with like reference and sketches, just putting ideas together, just concepts, not even really design, just concepts. Like maybe it could be this way, maybe it could be that way, maybe this idea works. And then as we start to kind of narrow down what the ideas are, and that's something that we're doing collaboratively, like just with essentially critiques and reviews, then we'll like assign the concepts to a designer. It might just be one person doing all the designs, but figure out which ones we feel like are strong enough to sort of move into like more of a design phase. And then we start working on designs, and sometimes one designer takes it from the start all the way to the end. Sometimes we'll pass things around. One person might be better at typography and color, and somebody else might be better at comping or drawing. So we just kind of figure out who's the strongest person to work on it, and then assign them that way. We're a small team, so I don't know if we mentioned this at the beginning. We have, I think, 13 now.
Yeah, 13 now, yeah.
So, you don't always have the luxury of pulling people between jobs, and people are also trying to deliver stuff. So, Saurabh might be the best person to work on X project, but he's in the middle of Google, so you can't necessarily move him around, but without kind of causing chaos. But I'm always eager to do that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure.
I have one quick question, if that's all right, if we're still here.
Here.
I remember in the beginning you said you were working on an animated television series for preschoolers, if I remember correctly. No, did I get that wrong?
We worked on.
We
worked on. I don't know. Can we say what we worked on?
Oh,
Yeah.
we worked on something for Sesame Street.
Oh, cool.
Yes, and they had a show that they are putting together, and I don't know if it's aired yet, so that's why I'm being a little careful.
I'll sign an NDA, I promise.
Yeah, right. So yeah, they were putting together a show. So it was for Sesame Street, and then we've also worked with Universal Kids in the past, and maybe a few other.
So it's not a series. It was
Right.
we were working on open for the show, and for Universal Kids, we made a promo package for like a summer campaign. So it's not a series.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that changes your question or not, but
well, I was going to ask, that's a crazy transition to go from motion graphics to an episodic series. I was like, how did that work? But that makes more sense with what you've explained to me. So you've answered my question. Thank you.
I mean, we have.
Go ahead,
I was going to say, like, we have done. Well, we've done like some episodic stuff like Planetary Gossip, which Adam, maybe you can chat a little bit about, but like for Sneaker Center, that they did have series graphics where it was like we're tasked with making a narrative piece that's going to be in that they need to just like visually help tell the story a little bit in a visual way, and that workflow is absolutely different than our traditional entertainment marketing, because we're having to work with like parallel path with the editorial process, which that is a different beast than what we're normally used to. So it is a different way of thinking, and it's definitely a different way of animating too. And like, that's where, you know, there's a lot of back and forth of like, okay, what's the best way to approach this? How can we streamline an effort if that's possible? And also it's really having that conversation with the client and just letting them know, you know, like, you're asking for this change and it seems very simple, but like, we need at least, like, the designer is going to need at least a day to do this, and then animation is going to need at least a few days to do this. So that series, that episodic workflow is something that we're getting used to every project that it comes up on, and improving every time.
Nice.
We did a bunch of work for this thing called TZGZ, which was like a late night kind of like adult sci-fi show on sci-fi. It was like short form curated content, and we helped them with like an initial pilot where we animated a bunch of little sort of vignettes. One was called High Wizard. You can see it on our website. In that case, the client wrote the script and we did the design and animation. We did another one that was called The Lioness. And then after we did all that, they asked us if we wanted to pitch ideas for our own content. So we pitched a bunch of different ideas, and they they asked us to make these ones that we could call planetary gossip. And it's like basically the planets are catty, obnoxious teenagers, like basically like bitching at each other. And it was really hard. It was like because it was like, you know, we did it, we wrote the scripts, we did all the voiceover, you know, design thing, animated it, and they didn't really give us a deadline. So that was also hard because it was like we could just kept noodling on it. And but it was really super fun. Like we sort of did like a writer's room for the scripts where we just like sat down and like threw out ideas for, you know, jokes and stuff, and workshopped them together. And then we did, or Megan did some of the voices, or did the voice for Earth, right? And it's really great. So it was a fun one, but it was very hard, and it's hard to imagine, like you said, pivoting from doing like motion graphics to doing like a full series. It's really like a totally different way of thinking.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know, Andrew, do I need to ask for you? Do you have any audio on site?
Oh no, I don't. I'm good. Yeah, no, I appreciate it, but no, I'm good.
But like, what do you do for sound? Just curious. Not for Andrew.
Yeah, no, Andrew.
But for asking for a friend.
Yeah. It really varies. A lot of our projects, not unfortunately, but a lot of our projects the sound is done by the clients. So I say unfortunately only because we know a lot of sound designers. We get reached out by people all the time, and we have to be like, we don't really get a choice very much. But we don't have anybody on staff. There has been occasions where we'll like do some sound design, or like the flute. Or we'll do stuff on our own, but it's really kind of hacked together. We're not sound professionals. So then, you know, when we do have a choice, we'll hire freelancers for sure, or other studios. I wish we had more opportunity to collaborate in that way.
Yeah, I just find when I do motion graphics work, the audio is super important to have before I even start animating anything. So
yeah, it's so important. Yeah.
And we always work with 10 tracks or some kind of audio that ends up getting replaced.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's difficult, is like we'll have like a 10 track that we're using for like a promo, and then like you turn the audio off at the last second and deliver it, and then the client sends you back something else, but you've been hearing the thing for weeks, you know, like in the track that you have, and then you're like, oh, that's what they did, you know. Or sometimes it's like a great surprise. We did this thing for Sons of Anarchy where they ended up licensing a U2 track, and it was like, oh, awesome. You know, it's like we got like an actual piece of real music that, you know, this thing is like that, like a recognizable, you know, track that like you never would have thought to get away with. So
that's another area where like when we are using the temp tracks, that's when Dorian and I have to be very explicit. This is a temp track for posting purposes only, because sometimes clients do get attached to something and they really like it. And we're like, yeah, it's so great. If you can contact Bono, you know, like go for it. But and sometimes in Sons of Anarchy they can, but sometimes you have to find a good licensable replacement.
But the sound makes such a difference. It
really does.
And we did this other project for The Walking Dead where the company that we worked with, Fall on Your Sword, like they were big fans. And so they put like way more effort into it than they probably should have. And it sounded amazing. And it really kind of takes the whole thing to a different level for sure. And
it like with Fall on Your Sword and some of our other sound partners, like there's a rapport there where our team or Adam can be like, oh, can you add like a little something here, because then like that's just going to like make for a better transition with this animation. And so like there's a really good back and forth there, and it just comes out great.
Cool. Well, I would like to wrap up the recording part. And then if there's a couple people that
yeah, then we can talk for real. Let's do it.
Exactly. So I wanted to thank you guys so much for taking almost 2 hours with us. Amazing.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
I think we could go through your whole website and go through every project. They're all just so different. Like you were explaining that just each one has such a unique look to it and process that it's just really fascinating for all of it. So thank you again.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming.
Cool.